Now let's look at something else that's quite interesting. If there is morality, then we should have moral responsibility. But to have moral responsibility, we would need something called free will. Now there are a lot of atheists that reject this. I'm not sure Professor Flores' position, but in my opinion, the most logical position for an atheist to take is the position of determinism, which is the view that human beings are purely physical machines, but physical machines have to operate by physical law and therefore have no free will and cannot be held more responsible for their actions. Now, if you're shaking your head, I can understand that you might. This is the conclusion of atheism, not mine. Based on two views in atheism, called physicalism and naturalism, which, if I'm not mistaken, in the bio I heard Professor Flores is a naturalist. The physicalist view is that the view that nothing beyond the physical world exists. The view of naturalism, that everything arises from natural properties and causes, and supernatural or spiritual explanations are excluded or discounted. To quote philosopher J.P. Moreland once again, he says, "If there is no freedom, how can there be moral responsibility? If you are a physicalist and the only thing you believe in is matter, and must believe that a human being is composed of nothing but matter, there would be no room for freedom of the will because physical machines cannot act freely. They behave according to the laws of chemistry and physics." He goes on to say, if I shoot a bullet in the air, it doesn't say, I'm tired of obeying Newton's laws of motion, let me swerve left. Why? Well, because it's a physical thing. And what can be said of the bullet can be said of anything that is purely physical. But if you have freedom, there has to be something more to you that has the freedom other than matter, namely what we would call your soul, something immaterial that can act on the physical. This is the position of dualism, which is a claim that we as humans are composed of a physical substance and a spiritual or immaterial substance. And this would account for free will, your mind, and consciousness. Aristotle used a wonderful illustration. He said, if I move a rock with a staff, the staff moved the rock, I moved the staff, but what moved me? Now an atheist might say, well, clearly we can look at your brain and say that a neuron firing happened and it made you move your hand to move the staff, to move the rock. But all you would have to do is ask, well, what made that neuron fire the other one? And then once you answer that, what neuron firing made the neuron firing made the other neuron firing to make your hand move? So clearly there has to, if there is free will, there has to be something immaterial other than your physical body to act on your body for us to even have free will in the first place. If I want to lift my left arm, I simply do it freely. Nothing makes me. There may be a correlation in my brain, but if there is no God, there is nothing immaterial and nothing to give me that. Therefore, again, the atheist default position, determinism. For example, we can see this with our brain. Our brain is not our mind. They are different. How so? I can measure a brain state. You can have a mass or weight. However, I can't measure a thought. It makes no sense to ask how many inches long is the thought of the grass being green. How many pounds is the taste of banana? How many inches long is the smell of rose? These things just don't make sense. They are category fallacies. Another thing about the brain state and mental states, a thought can be true or false. I can have a thought, does God exist? That can be true or false. But if I look at what's going on in my brain, a C-fire, brain, or something to that effect, you cannot look at your brain firing and say that brain firing right there is true or that brain firing is false. Why? Because the brain and mind are simply two different things. Most definitely there's a correlation, but they are not the same.